Hello, I'm David Learman. Some would say I've had an exciting life. My early years, I traveled the whole of Europe to the fashion capitals, photographing runway fashion and haute couture. I met some of the greatest fashion designers and fashion models of the time. After a while, I felt I was working within a straitjacket, a creative straitjacket, and decided to put the cameras down. In the mid-80s, I set up my own design company, which I still run today with my wife Georgina. Initially, our move to Ras Al Khaimah was an economic decision. We didn't know much about the Emirate. It was a place that we came to once in a while to get away from the city. However, as soon as we moved here, we found Ras Al Khaimah has amazing natural attributes. In particular, we have the sea, we have the desert, and of course we have the mountains. And everybody says the same thing. We have sea, desert, and mountains. However, the reality is, it's much more than that. We also have a very relaxed lifestyle. It's a comfortable place to live. In fact, it's so comfortable, it's very difficult to leave the Emirate. I think Ras Al Khaimah has an amazing future. I know for a fact the future has been planned very, very carefully, and there is huge consideration going into maintaining the natural attributes of the Emirate, as well as, of course, growing the Emirate, in particular with Marjan Island and all the development that's going on around that. I believe that the decision makers, His Highness and his advisors, are very conscious of protecting the precious environment we have around us. I think economically, Ras Al Khaimah will find it difficult to compete with Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah. But there again, I don't believe there's a competition in that environment. I believe that there's a different agenda. It's a much more rural environment here in Ras Al Khaimah, although obviously the Emirate has to make money, it has to generate an income, and I think the means by which it's going to do that have been very carefully managed. I think the development Marjan is incredible. I think the vision is fantastic. I think also the philosophy of maintaining, or I should say developing, Marjan as a modern environment, a modern village in reality, because it's not big enough to be called a city, but certainly a village. And it's providing the Emirate a sense of modernization without compromising its natural assets. Today, I wear many hats. Professionally, I am a brand consultant. I've run my own branding agency for the last 40 years. However, I'm easing out of that and going more into my photography, where I started my career. In particular, photography is much more of a passion. I have several exhibitions planned. In fact, I have 2 exhibitions in progress at the minute. And I also, every December, become Santa Claus. I am also chairman of our local sports club, Al Sports Club. Ras Al Khaimah is very important to me. My photography is all about Ras Al Khaimah. I'm not a brand ambassador, but I guess some of my work could be considered as ambassadorial, as the majority of it is all about the Emirate. Today, I could be taking photographs of the development of the Win. Tomorrow, I could be up in the mountains photographing every little nook and cranny I can find. And then the following day I could be either in the desert or on the seashore. So the Emirate is giving me a lot of things, and it's my opportunity now to give back through my work and to support the Emirate in its growth and its development. What makes my work slightly unique and different is the fact that some of my photography demands that I spend a lot of time planning and taking the actual photograph. One image actually comes to mind. I often go to Al Sawan, our local camel racetrack, and I'd found this fantastic location in front of the mountains, and there's an avenue lined with trees. However, when I first found it, it was in the middle of the summer, so there were no leaves on the trees, but the composition and everything was perfect. So at that point I started to plan how I was going to take that photograph. I went back to that location weekly, all the way through to September, the beginning of October. And by coincidence, probably I think it was the first week or the second week of October, we had a rainstorm. And within a few days, the trees had started to sprout their leaves. And it started to be very verdant, very nice and green. And obviously we had clear skies, and I got the mountains in the background, I had the sand in the foreground, but I had nothing in the middle of the space. At the same time, it was that time of year when the sun was low in the horizon, and at dawn the sun came across the horizon very low. And all of a sudden I had another element to the composition, this beautiful horizontal light. But still the image wasn't right. So I decided to plant my tripod in the location, and I went back every day for nearly 3 weeks. And eventually I got to the point where I had lots of photographs of the environment, of the scene, and camels and their trainers and the riders running through it, but it wasn't complete. And I think it was the first week of November, and I went there, and I believe it was a Thursday morning, very early in the morning. This must have been about 5 o'clock, just before sunrise. And by coincidence, it was fantastic. There was a beautiful fog that had come through behind the trees, and the sunlight was shining through the fog, and the composition was almost perfect. And by chance, a single camel rider and 2 of his small camels, baby camels, trotted through the scene, and I photographed it. But it looked rather odd because there was only 1 camel and 2 or 3 little camels and the rider, and it wasn't balanced. And I was just about to start to pack all my gear up, and eventually, just by chance, this rider came running through very quickly behind me into the middle of the scene with the first rider in the distance, and I captured it. I managed to get 2 shots off before he disappeared into the distance. And unfortunately, the first shot was a little bit soft, a little bit blurred, but the second shot was perfect. I caught the catch light, I had the horizontal sun, I had the fog, the mountains, the green trees, and made the perfect shot. Ever since, I've been trying to emulate that same process in different environments, different scenes, and it's really difficult because sometimes nature is not cooperative. It doesn't cooperate very well. It's either rainy, it's too sunny, it's too windy, too dark, it's too light, and sometimes the components are just not there. However, we strive to continue and to work towards perfection. There's something about goats that I have a fixation about goats, and In the last 10 years, I've found it really, really difficult to get a great photograph of a goat. I was fortunate enough to, lucky enough to find one subject. I happened to be in Wadi Galila at the time. I was climbing up the side of the wadi, up a small goat track towards a farm, a goat farm. And I had all my gear on my back, and I was climbing up the path, and I came to a very steep incline, and there was a corner at the top. I remember there was a corner at the top, and as I walked around the corner, there was this amazing billy goat with huge horns, stood on a rock, staring at me. I stopped still, and I could not grab my camera quick enough. And I was shaking so much, and the fact that I was worried that he was going to run off before I managed to get a photograph of him. And I managed to grab my camera that was on my back. And I remember bringing the camera up to my face, and he looked directly into the camera at me. And I thought, oh, he's going to hit me. He's going to run at me. He's going to butt me. And I captured 3 or 4 frames of this guy, and it's perfect, absolutely perfect shot of this billy goat. And it's amazing because I've got the distance of the wadi and the valley of the wadi behind him. I've got the mountains to the left, the wadi to the right, and I've got these amazing, massive blue rocks, massive boulders on which he was stood and behind him. And I remember that was a great shot. And when I got back and I processed it, it reminded me of a very famous painting that hangs in the Scottish Gallery, Scottish National Gallery, called The Monarch of the Glen. I actually called the photograph Monarch of the Wadi. And the pose and the way he's standing, very regal, very proud, very confident, reflected this painting, very famous painting, in the Scottish Gallery. And I have a photograph, I'll share it with you all. It's a comparison, side-by-side comparison of the painting together with my photograph, and you'll see what I mean. But goats are a problem for me. I always, when I see a goat, I want to photograph it. Inevitably, I'm halfway up a mountain, and as soon as I get anywhere near, they go higher. And I can never, ever get high enough a mountain to get the sort of photograph I want of a goat. And I will endeavor, I will keep going. Eventually, hopefully, I will capture the perfect photograph of a goat. But there we are. In 2024, I exhibited at World Art Dubai, where I was named Photographer of the Year. World Art Dubai opened many doors for me, great opportunities. In particular, I was approached by Gargash Mercedes Dubai to present a show of work, an exhibition of work for National Day. And we did 57 photographs, 1 photograph for every year of the UAE. And subsequently, they then asked me to present a body of work for their Ramadan exhibition, which is currently running. My photography, whether consciously or subconsciously, is influenced by the great painters. Whether that is an impressionist or whether an old classic like Rubens, Caravaggio, Fra Angelica, or to the more modernists like Hockney. There's an influence. They've influenced many of my photographs and my style. Much of my work is what I would call art photography, but it is also a combination of art photography and documentary photography. Many of my images do reflect the nature and style of some of these great painters. In fact, so much of this will be evident in a new book that I'm working on, which is going to be called Al-Hajin, The Art of Camel Racing. And the book is all about the story of camel racing at Al Sawan here in Ras Al Khaimah, where I spent twice a week for 4 years at the camel track, photographing every aspect of the camel racing training and the social life and the support life, all the people who support the camel racing. In fact, the first 6 months I spent there, I didn't even take a photograph. I spent my time enjoying a chai, a chat with all the local owners, the herdsmen, the organizers of the camel racing, to the point at which I became very familiar to them. And eventually I started going with the camera, and the beauty of it was the fact that they did not react to the camera as they would naturally do to a tourist. So all the mannerisms, all the gestures were all natural. And it gave me a great opportunity to photograph the sport and the activity, the pastime, from the inside out, rather than from the outside in. And many of my photographs are much more intimate than you would normally see at such an event. I'm currently working on my book that will include most of those images, or many of those images. I actually photographed, I think, 25 to 35,000 shots. Obviously, I can't include those, all of them in the book, but I've managed to edit those down to around about 250, 300 images. I now have a manuscript for the words. I'm now working also on the translation of the manuscript into Arabic, in the hope that I will publish 2 variants of the book, 2 editions of the book, one in Arabic, one in English. Hopefully that will all come to fruition by the end of 2025. I've been asked many times by people who are thinking about coming to Ras Al Khaimah why they should do so. Personally, it's very easy for me because I've lived here now in the UAE, certainly 20 odd years, and Ras Al Khaimah, I believe 12 or 13 years. I think if you're considering Ras Al Khaimah, then you've got to think about what type of lifestyle you want. What I love about Ras Al Khaimah, it's just a very relaxed lifestyle. It's almost like a town, village community. It has, you know your neighbors, they know you. It's very approachable as an emirate. It's low rise. It has huge traditional elements of tradition amongst it. The great thing is that you live not side by side with your neighbors, but with your neighbors, in particular with your Emirati neighbors. The Emirati community is so engaging, and also the expat community. We are all about enjoying the life of being in somewhere that is relaxed. And that's what Ras Al Khaimah is all about. It's relaxed. Obviously, there's huge investment opportunities here now. We stepped in 2007 when we bought our home here off plan. And we're now living the life that we never thought we would. And the reality is that it's hard to think about going to Dubai or going to Abu Dhabi or going to Sharjah. In fact, personally, I find excuses not to go to Dubai, Sharjah or Abu Dhabi because it's so easy here in Ras Al Khaimah. You have everything, literally everything we need. If you prefer a metropolis, then obviously Dubai and Abu Dhabi are the places to be. But for Ras Al Khaimah, we have a lifestyle, we have entertainment. Okay, we're not huge on the cultural side, but that's growing. And that's part of my contribution to Ras Al Khaimah, is going to assist that, to help build the cultural aspect. We have the first art gallery in Ras Al Khaimah opened 2 years ago. I support that wholeheartedly, and I think everybody should do so. But the reality is, if you've got a family or if you're a single, you have everything here from sport, you have entertainment, you have outdoor life, you have adventure, and of course you have great weather. It's much cooler here than it is up in Dubai. So yeah, I highly recommend. If you're thinking about coming to the UAE, then you should think about definitely coming to Ras Al Khaimah.